My wife returned from the cemetery. My grandmother told me this story. It happened back in the distant days of the USSR, when collective farm tractors were rumbling in the arable fields. That Saturday, a commotion broke out in their village. A mechanic, Ivan Danilovich, killed his wife at home, and in a strange way. He stabbed a woman with a wooden stake. Then the man went to the neighbors, told them about this crime, and they already went to the city for the police. The murderer was arrested. All the rural people were perplexed. The Konov family was reputed to be strong and prosperous. The couple had 2 children. My daughter lived and studied in Moscow, where she got married as a student. My son moved to Kuzbas. But what happened. The victim was buried, and an investigation was conducted with the criminal. And this is what information spread through the village. After Ivan Danilovich confessed to the police, it is not known for certain who found out the secret. According to the detainee, that Saturday, his wife went to the cemetery because it was the anniversary of her beloved aunt. He couldn't keep her company because of his illness. The woman was absent for an unusually long time that day. The man was already worried and was thinking about going in search of her. For some reason, the thought came to mind that she might have gotten lost in the heavy snowfall that played out on the street. My grandmother also recalled that winter weather. He says it's snowing so hard you can't see anything in front of you. But, although it was late, Ivan Danilovich's wife returned home. At the same time, the killer drew attention to one strange fact. In their yard, a dog lived in a kennel on a chain, which raised barks at strangers who entered the yard. But she never barked at her own people. And then the dog barked threateningly at his own mistress. Her husband was glad to see her back and rushed to her, asking why she had been walking for so long. But the woman only replied that she was frozen. Then Antonina, without even undressing, went to the table and sat down on a chair. And here Ivan Danilovich drew attention to another strange fact. His wife began to look around the hut as if for the first time she was here, as an invited guest. He also found the woman's gaze unusual. He described it as kind of muddy. The man offered her some hot soup from the road, but she refused, shaking her head. Ivan thought that his wife was also sick, perhaps having been infected directly from himself, and decided to take a sip of her forehead to check if the woman had a fever. When he bent over his wife, who was sitting on a chair, he smelled some kind of disgusting smell from her. It took the man a moment to figure out what Antonina smelled like. Ivan kissed her forehead and felt that it was as cold as ice. And that's when he realized why his wife was so disgusting. It was a cadaverous smell. The man tried to keep his composure and did not show that he suspected something was wrong. He only began to persuade his wife to undress and lie down on the bed under the covers, so that she would warm up better. Meanwhile, he's going to chop wood in the yard to turn up the heat on the stove. And the wife agreed to this proposal. Ivan helped her take off her coat and covered her with a blanket on the bed. And he hurriedly rushed out into the courtyard. He realized that something had happened to his wife in the cemetery, which turned her into the living dead. It was dangerous to be alone with her at home, and he had nowhere to run. If you tell the neighbors about such considerations, then in the village he will be considered insane. Ivan had heard about the popular belief that a man who had risen from the dead could be killed with an aspen stake driven into his heart. Therefore, grabbing an axe, the man rushed to the edge of the forest, where he found a young aspen tree suitable for quick cutting, and began to make a weapon out of it to kill his wife. Soon, struggling with fear, he returned to the house. His wife was lying on her back, staring blankly at the ceiling. And here the man decided to act quickly. According to him, he quickly jumped up to his wife, tore off her blanket, pointed a sharpened stake at her heart and leaned on it with his whole body. His wife seemed to growl in response, but she didn't have time to do anything. The stake pierced her body with some abnormal ease, as if it were not elastic, but loose. There was no bleeding from the wound. The victim only managed to close her muddy eyes before she died. After making sure that she was dead, Ivan went to the neighbors and told them that he had killed Aunt Irina. He was not recognized as crazy, despite neither the story nor the nature of the crime committed with the help of an aspen stake. Therefore, Ivan Danilovich went to prison for 8 years, where he died in an accident.